So welcome back, Bernie Hollywood. Oh, my life. So we spoke on the 17th of November in 2022, and this was just before you were just about to embark on an amazing adventure. So recap, what did you actually achieve, Bernie?
Right, Sid. So I've just come back from the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge,
Yeah.
which is classified as the world's toughest row. And I took on the world's toughest row as a part of our Boat of Hope campaign. It was the third phase in the campaign. And the third part of the campaign was for me to row an ocean-going rowing boat solo, which measures 7 meters in length and 2 meters wide. It basically was a challenge to row that boat from a small island just off Tenerife called La Gomera. And I rowed it 3,540 miles across the Atlantic Ocean through 17 storm systems, two
Oh,
capsizes, numerous issues with my health, which we could talk about later, I guess. And it took 109 days to actually row through the ocean and get to the nearest landfall when you actually row across the ocean to an island in the Caribbean Sea called Antigua.
wow.
And I've just completed that. I did it in one piece, remarkably. It was a hugely challenging journey and voyage, which I learned an awful lot more about myself than ever before. And it was fantastic for our campaign, which is basically to open up a conversation about how young people feel about their mental health and well-being inside their heads and hearts. The actual race is seen by over 950 million people around the world. And we had our beautiful Justin Eagleton commissioned mural wrapped around our boat, which basically shows the story of a young person going through depression on one side of the boat called The Struggle. And then on the opposite side of the boat, you see that young person coming out of that depression with hope. And that mural, as I say, has been seen by over 950 million people around the world. I had a great opportunity to talk about that really important subject throughout the whole of my voyage. And as a consequence, it's been a great success. So the third phase of our campaign is now nailed down, and we move to our final phase coming up shortly.
Wow. And what's the final phase?
The final phase is to have the boat in an exhibition,
Wow.
which we've been planning for a couple of years now, and the boat will be on display. We have a free exhibition up at Liverpool Cathedral, which obviously is the centre of the world at the moment because of Eurovision.
Of course.
So hopefully we'll get some overspill from Eurovision, and lots of people, and lots of young people in particular, can come see the boat from the 27th of May to the 4th of June. It's at Liverpool Cathedral. It's a free exhibition. You'll see our magnificent Boat of Hope on display. Plus, there's lots of other activities going on inside the cathedral that can actually stimulate conversation about how you feel inside your head and your heart. So please come along. It's English half term week. And so all the schools in England will be on half term. Mums and dads, if you're looking for a great day out and you want your kids to be inspired and you want them to start talking about how they feel, come along to the cathedral and we're sure to actually help you do that.
Brilliant. And going back to the actual row, I mean, 109 days, mate.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it feel? I mean, be honest. Because
Yeah.
I mean, I know that the start was not easy, was it either?
No, the start. I think it was one of the most horrendous things I've ever done. I knew from the very beginning when we actually rowed the boat out of the harbour. Within the first 24 to 36 hours, the weather changed very, very badly. When we were going out of the harbour, we were actually warned by the race organisers that the solo boats, which I was in one of, there was 5 of us, they said that we would struggle because there was a huge headwind blowing in front of the boat. So as you're rowing the boat, you've got the wind coming towards you, which obviously slows you down dramatically. And that's really what happened from the get-go. The weather systems for this year's race, or last year's race, should I say, have been the worst ever in the 10 years of the race itself. They've never seen weather like it.
Wow.
And we had to endure that, as I say, from day one. So I knew from day 3 that when I was sitting on deck, I could actually still see the start line 3 days after I started to row. So I could see La Gomera, the island, in the distance. Every single night I could see the lights on in the harbour, and I could see Mount Teddy in the background from Tenerife. And on the third night, we got the most horrendous storm. It was the first of 17. The most horrendous storm that I'd actually encountered on the journey so far. And I remember sitting on deck in this storm, and the boat was just getting tossed around like a little matchstick in somebody shaking a bottle, and the boat was just going everywhere. I was strapped in.
And
And
you
I
were
remember,
inside your cabin, weren't you?
yes, I was outside the cabin on this occasion, and the waves were coming and hitting the boat from every single direction. Waves 30 to 40 foot high. And I remember looking out and seeing a cruise liner coming towards Tenerife, and the cruise liner was just rocking and rolling like you'd never believe. This huge ship was struggling like crazy to actually get into Tenerife. And here's me in a 7-meter boat, 20-foot long boat, weighing 360 kilos, 630 kilos. And I'm thinking, if that's struggling, what chance have I got of getting out of this in one piece? And then sadly that evening, when I went into the cabin to get some rest during the storm, the boat capsized for the first time, which was wholly horrendous, the capsize that happened. Thankfully, I was in the cabin when it happened. If I was outside on deck, I would have been washed overboard, attached to the boat, but I would have had to climb back in and get the boat rerighted and get myself back into the cabin. So, that was a horrendous storm. And sadly, when that storm hit, one of the bigger boats, Row or Die, a 4-person crew from the United States, their boat capsized. They were slightly ahead of me, and their boat capsized and never came back up again. So they had to be rescued. So they had to put an SOS out.
No
They
way.
had to abandon ship, get into their life raft, and they spent, I think, a serious number of hours basically floating in the life raft till they were rescued by a passing ship.
Wow.
So it was a tough night that night.
And that was just at the beginning, right?
Yeah, that was the third week. That was the third day. And it's I could have quit then, to be fair, because I had 2 capsizes in one night, and the second capsize was more severe than the first capsize because a lot of equipment underneath the deck fell on my legs when it capsized and went upside down. And as a consequence, I didn't know at the time, but when the equipment fell on my leg, it actually broke my leg. I thought it was just knee damage. The race doctor, was on I was on the telephone to the satellite phone, examined my leg, sort of verbally over the telephone, and said to me that, yeah, although you've damaged your leg, I can't tell you what damage has been done. I think, I'm happy for you to continue with one leg, providing you keep the right leg straight, and give it rest. The leg should recover within a matter of weeks, and gave me some painkillers that I had on board to actually take on a regular basis to sustain the pain that I was feeling at the time. So, yeah, it was a pretty gruesome start to what was going to be quite a challenge, really. And I think I knew then, the realization came in that, this wasn't going to be easy. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy from the get go as well. So, but not as tough as it turned out to be.
And what did you? So I mean, 109 days, and I can't get my head around that. I mean,
Mm.
it's so. What did you learn about yourself? Because I mean, you've done some incredible challenges throughout
Yeah.
your life, haven't you? But what did it teach you? This particular.
I think what it taught me more than anything is that, you think going into these particular challenges, that you are invincible.
Hmm.
I've done challenges now over the last 40 years, and thank goodness I've come out of all of them, in decent shape,
Mm.
both mentally and physically. What this challenge taught me was that is not the case. You know,
Wow.
you can train for the best, to be the best of your ability at any particular sport or challenge, and you can prepare to the nth degree. But at the end of the day, Mother Nature will always come ahead of everything, and you cannot control Mother Nature. There's just no way you can do that. And I was sitting in 40, 50-foot seas with nobody around me. Winds that basically talk to you like you've never heard before, howling and growling and whistling at you, and seas coming at you from every single direction, horrendous rain, and lightning and thunder that you would never even contemplate in your life. And as I sat there and enduring this, I was also in incredible wonder that when Mother Nature wants to do what she wants to do, there's no preparation in the world, no strongest rower in the world that could ever beat that, and that you just have to allow Mother Nature to do what she does. So I really became one with nature at a time. It's something that you cannot fight against. You have to basically look and wonder, however severe or beautiful it can be, because it can be one side and then the other. You can see the beauty of the ocean, when the storm passes through and calm comes, and then you see the Mother Nature with all of its marine life as well, just living in the ocean. So there was self-realization that this was going to be very difficult mentally and physically, but I just had to keep going for the cause. The cause was all about mental health and well-being, and I was there effectively to raise awareness of that. And what I found out very quickly is that my mental resilience is not that good. So during the voyage, I had panic attacks, anxiety, severe breakdowns, whereby I just sit and just weep for no reason. I'd be listening to some songs on my in my earbuds, and then a certain song would come on and it would just make me break down in tears because of the lyric. And I was listening to an amazing book by Philip Knight called Shoe Dog, which I've recommended to you, Sid. I think you've read it already.
I've read it and I love it.
I listened to that book 5 times, and there were certain pieces in that book, as you know, they're so inspirational about not giving up, and getting various knockbacks over and over and over again. And that really inspired me as well when I was listening to that audio book, when I was rowing along. And then my partner Sharon, who's an absolute amazing rock in my life, she kept me going every evening because she had the wrath of what happened during the day, and I used to speak to Sharon every evening via the sat phone, and she was just an incredible soundboard and a great inspiration as well, because there is a saying that behind every man and behind every great woman there is an equal man or woman of substance, and all I can say is I can actually confirm that having Sharon there at the end of the day was just an amazing blessing from my point of view. And there's no question that she kept me going when times were bad, and times were bad on a regular basis, particularly when I wanted to quit, because I did want to get out. There's no question. I wanted to actually be rescued on a number of occasions. But thankfully, the safety vessel was a month and a half away to actually come and get me. Yeah, because they said originally, yes, we can come and get you in 3 weeks. And then that went out to a month and a month and a half. Now, that was done purposely. I found out that they wanted me to carry on because they felt that I could do it. And by delaying the boat coming to get me meant I got nearer to Antigua. And as you get nearer to Antigua, naturally, psychologically, you start thinking, yeah, I can possibly do this. I can try and get to Antigua. So the safety vessel did get to me eventually 600 nautical miles before I got into Antigua. And because they had to resupply me because I was running out of food. And I remember the day the safety vessel came alongside. Beautiful morning, I think one of only 5 mornings I had. And she came alongside early on in the morning, and the skipper on board, an amazing guy called Manny, basically was chatting to me about, yes, you can come on board right now. We can give you a hot shower. You can get into a beautiful hammock.
Oh,
We can give you some great food. And this is after just up to about
oh,
3 months at sea, and 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 Manny says, you don't really want to do that. I know you don't want to do that because you've
oh.
only got 600 nautical miles to go. It sounds a long way, but I'd actually rowed around about 2,800 at that stage. And he said, listen, if you give up now, you'll never forgive yourself
Yeah.
for doing this. And we know you can do this. Everyone is behind you. And the safety vessel stayed with me for about 4 or 5 hours that day. And I'm so grateful to Manny. And he's the chap that, if you ever see the film of me coming in, he's the guy that actually was there to embrace me when I got off the boat. He was the first guy that I hugged. And again, it was only for Sharon and Manny. I don't think I'd be here talking to you about what happened today, because it was touch and go on a number of occasions. But thank goodness I'm here.
Wow. There's a story you told me a short while ago about, I know you're not a religious man,
No,
but about the couple in the village that gave you something.
yeah, yeah,
Could you tell that story?
yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely. I'm not a religious person in any shape or form, but I really do, obviously, uh, really sort of, I'm envious of people that have religion in their lives, because it gives them that rock, and it gives them that assurance, of their gods, etc. So I respect everybody's religion. And I was walking around a village, and it's a very small village that we live in here, as you know, Sid. So, and a couple came up to me and bump into, because when you dog walk, you meet everybody. And they came up and said, we'd like to give you a gift. Actually came round and knocked on the back door, and they came in and had a cup of coffee, and they gave me a little wooden cross, sculpted cross, only so big. And they said, when we saw this cross, we thought of you straight away, because when you turn it over, it actually looks like waves in the ocean.
Wow.
And they said, this was definitely made for you, and we want you to take it with you, because it will keep you safe, and God will be with you on your travels when you go across the ocean. And I said, yeah, thank you so much. This means an awful lot to me. I will take it with me. And that's what I did. And I placed the cross in the front cabin next to my radio, and just perched it in. It actually fit nicely just above the radio, so I could see it every day. And on the second capsize, when the boat went over and the lights failed and the batteries failed, and I was in complete darkness for about 4 minutes, thinking that the boat wasn't going to rewrite itself in this storm, and water started to ingress in the cabin. And I basically had my legs trapped in all of the equipment that had fallen out of the hatches underneath the boat. I did think that that was the end. Made a phone call to my friend Tim and left a voicemail message to say goodbye to everybody. But as the boat came and it went violently over, when it actually capsized, this little cross that was actually next to the radio actually fell in the darkness and fell into my hand. Um, and obviously it was very dark. I felt the cross go into my hands, and I held onto it. And I basically said, JC, this is your time now to prove to me that you're actually up there looking after me. Come on, help me now. And um, nothing happened for a couple of minutes, and then eventually the boat started to rewrite very slowly. And it took around about 5 minutes for the boat to come back up, and I had this little cross in my hands. And the boat rewrited eventually in the storm, a huge storm still going on as the boat comes back up again. And then basically rang head office, the control office, to say what happened. The electronic indicator went off outside to say that it capsized, and they were instigating a rescue.
Wow.
was a boat on the way to me to actually pick me up at the time, and that was called off because I said, I think I'm okay. I think I can actually get the boat back into decent shape. So they called off the SOS rescue. I got the cabin eventually sorted out. It took a couple of hours to get the cabin back into order. I had to pump all the water out, mop everything up in the eye of the storm. Then things started to calm down a little bit. Spoke to the race doctor about my leg, put my little cross back into position. So maybe there was divine intervention at some stage. Who knows? But really, the belief of wanting to survive and asking people for help, even if it is divine help, I think really sort of proved to me that miracles, I guess, can happen. And also Sharon said to me, I always remember when I had a very, very, very bad time, when the boat was going backwards and I wasn't making progress, and all of the actual currents were pushing me south as opposed to west. And I wanted to give up. And Sharon said to me, don't give up. Miracles are starting to happen here. With regards to people that I've spoken to that have got very, very bad mental health, but now started to talk about how they feel for the very first time as a consequence of talking about the boat of hope. She said, the boat of hope is working. It's creating little mini miracles that I know of, but I'm sure it's doing that across the world. So what you're doing being out there really is having an effect on how people think. So she said, for goodness sake, please keep going. The boat is helping to save lives. So there was little sort of sound bites like that sit all the way along that there were just beautiful moments on the voyage whereby you're reminded that life is so precious. And we're here for such a short period of time. I've been very fortunate. I've been on the planet for 63 years now. And I've had an incredible life. And I've been very fortunate. I've got two amazing sons in my life and an amazing partner, and I've done some great things. I'm an ordinary guy that's done extraordinary things with really the benefit of the people that I've surrounded myself with, which are all truly remarkable. Too many to mention today, but they all know who they are. So it proves that, however low that you get, and we all get low in our lives, we all have those down moments where we think, is it all worth it? Life is worth it. There is always light at the end of that storm. And it's there was a song that I listened to on a regular basis, which is like the Liverpool anthem, which is "You'll Never Walk Alone," and I substituted the walk for row. And I never rode alone, to be fair. I had so many people with me. There's over 2,000 people on the boat in the Mural that I actually carried across the ocean, along with my late mother and father, who were actually on the boat, and also my dog Murphy and Sharon, and all of my friends and my family are on there as well. Everybody that contributed to the campaign is there, with over 2,000 high school students as well. So I was never, ever, ever alone, never. And Sharon used to remind me about that every day. And when I used to get off the boat to actually clean the bottom of the hull and take all of the debris and barnacles off the bottom of the boat, I was just reminded every time I went, because I had to go right round the boat, I was looking at this beautiful work of art that Justin put together. And all the images of those smiling faces and all of those words that and the pictures that the students have put together about how they feel and what hope means to them. It just uplifted me every time I did it. And I got rejuvenated every time I got into the boat, even though I couldn't use my leg and I was in a lot of pain. It just reminded me of what the campaign is all about. And mental health is an issue around the world and continues to be, because life is full of all sorts of horrible pressures. And it reminded me that when I was getting into the boat, that my particular issues are nothing compared to what some other people are going through with their mental health and well-being. And to be thankful for what I have in life.
Wow, so beautiful.
Yeah.
And in terms of, just tell us some of the highlights of the wildlife that you
Yeah.
encountered along the way? Because that's like awesome, isn't it?
Oh gosh, it was. I mean, if anybody ever gets the opportunity to have a look at the Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge 2022 highlights film,
Mm.
it's 10 minutes long. It's on YouTube. You know, if you want to be inspired by wildlife, just have a look at that. Look at that YouTube video, just been released, and it's the wonder of the marine life within any ocean is just incredible, and it saddens me that we as human beings are polluting our rivers and oceans to such a degree that they are at risk at the moment, as you know. And actually, I'm an ambassador for an incredible charity called IC. And anybody that wants to actually be a part of this organization is so simple. You can just download the IC app, and it's a simple app that you actually just photograph any garbage or any rubbish that you see in an ocean, and it geomaps it, and then that comes into a central database, and then IC then share that data with marine conservationists who can then actually go and try and clean it up.
Oh,
So it's just a simple idea,
yeah.
but it's had huge impact. And we've now got seafarers around the world using this app, photographing, spare tires and rubbish and garbage that they see on the ocean, and then basically you can actually then map it. The great thing about it is they know the currents in the ocean, so they know where all of this garbage is going to flow to. And I was very proud to actually have the IC logo on my boat. And what's remarkable about my journey and the guys at IC basically said, "Did I see any garbage?" And I didn't see one piece of plastic, not one piece of plastic in 3,540 miles, not one piece of plastic, which was so refreshing. But the ocean is so vast. And one of my fellow rowers, Lara, she saw quite a lot of plastic, and she was just behind me, and then she went ahead of me towards the end of the race. She did incredibly well, Lara. She's an incredible woman. She saw quite a lot of garbage on the ocean. So when you think that the marine life is there, that's their home. We are human beings, and all we've got to do, it's really, really simple, is we've just got to think about when we discard something where it's going to actually end up. So we know that plastic doesn't biodegrade for decades and decades and decades. So just think about it when you're actually disposing of that. Think about it for not only yourself, but your children and your children to come. It's their earth, not ours, and we're not owners of the world. We're here renting it, and we've got to ensure that our children, our future generations of children, will have fresh water to drink. We'll have oceans to actually yield fish from in the future. So when I was on the ocean, I had that in mind, and when you come very close up with marine life, it really sort of touches your heart. So again, very early on in the voyage, I was visited by two minke whales that came just curious about seeing this piece of boat, this plastic in the water. And it looks like a whale from the bottom. If you look at the bottom of the hull, it looks like a small whale actually. So they're just very curious, and they came along and started bumping the boat with their heads. And they stayed with me for all of the evening, and they got a little bit aggressive towards the end because I think what they were trying to do was wake what they thought was a whale up.
Oh yeah.
So I rang race control, and they said, "Listen, the only way that you're going to get rid of these folks is that if you just row the boat away." And that's what I did. I got on the oars and I rowed, and then the whales just disappeared. But they came back the following evening. They just came back and just didn't bump me this time. They just came along and just alongside and just kept me company for a couple of hours before they disappeared. So, and then another great visitation from a larger whale, because the minke whales are around about 8 to 9 meters long. I then basically had an amazing whale. I don't know what species it was, but it was absolutely ginormous. It breached in front of the boat, and this ginormous creature just came straight in front of me, and then the boat when it went into the water, it created this massive tidal wave.
Wow.
Almost the boat went over, and then his giant or her giant tail just slapped down onto the water. And that was just incredible. And the difficulty is getting it on camera because you're rowing away, and these moments happen in a millisecond.
Yeah.
So by the time you race into the cabin to try and get your phone and come back out again, you've missed the blooming moment. So, but I did capture quite a few marine animals on my phone.
So you weren't there with your selfie stick all the way?
No, that's what you need to do. And I don't know how some of the fleet did it, because some of the fleet have captured some incredible. And you'll see that in that video I just mentioned. You'll see some of the whales and the porpoises and dolphins and sea turtles and amazing marine fish. I mean, I had a shoal of fish called Dorados, and they joined me on the first week, and they never left me till I got to Antigua. Now, the reason why is that they were feeding on the bottom of the boat. So they were eating the barnacles on the bottom of the boat, and they were feasting on them all the way across. So they kept me company through thick and thin. And they only disappeared. I knew when there was other marine life in the area because they disappeared when sharks appeared, because, of course, sharks would eat them. So I knew when there was nothing there, I knew there was something coming along. And sure enough, I had a number of shark visitations, which was just sensational. And the boat sits very low in the water, so you can literally touch the dorsal fins of these creatures as they come across. And sharks were 7-8 meters long, so the same size of my boat, and they just come serenely, just slowly, and it's just beautiful to see. And you think to yourself, why do people fish for these animals, and they are now an endangered species, sharks, all because they just want to make some soup with their fins, and it's there's got to be a better way. And when you see these particular animals in the environment that they live and breathe in, they need to be left alone. They need to be left alone. It's their territory, not ours. And I think we can fish sustainably in various ways, with regards to how humankind now is actually looking at these things, as opposed to trawling the bottom of the seas and rimming corals and so on and so forth. So yeah, it just gave me a better understanding of wildlife, and Sir David Attenborough is an amazing man, to say the least. He's just an absolute god. But it makes everything that he said come to life in such a way that we've really got to ensure that our oceans are kept safe for our future generations.
Yeah, wow. And what about because you mentioned sort of bird life as well. Tell me the story about the bird.
Yeah. Well, again, it's I was chatting to my son. I had an internet link infrequently, and I was absolutely usually surprised that there would be bird life in the middle of the Atlantic. And I was quite concerned because I was thinking, so where do these birds go overnight time? There's nowhere to roost. How do they feed? I said to because my son said, what type of bird are they? So I gave him a description, and he came back and he said, I know what it is. It's a Buell peverel, and they are Atlantic seabirds, and they stay at sea all of their lives, and they pair up for life, because there's always two of them together, so male and female, and they feed on flying fish.
Wow.
And I only actually found that out because I actually saw one of them actually fly down, and as one of the flying fish, because I was bombarded with flying fish every evening. Every night when these fish came out of the water and started to fly, these peverels would just come down, and it's just an amazing sequence to see them fly directly behind the fish and then basically scoop it up and fly past over. So this happened on a regular basis, and during the storms, these birds have got nowhere to go. I mean, they just get thrown about and tossed around with the winds. They started to roost on my boat.
Did they?
Yeah, it's just, again, they just came down and started just sitting on my boat. So I had flocks of seabirds. And of course, mankind is not a threat to them out there because, nobody does anything to them. So they never saw me as a threat. They saw the boat as a safe haven. As I was just rowing away in these storms with these seabirds all sitting right next to me. Um, and I've got to this moment in time, I can't understand how they actually didn't fall off, because the boat is rocking and rolling, and they're basically going and rolling with the boat with their little feet on the spare oars that I had either side of me. And again, your mental health starts to kick in. I started to talk to them and have a chat to them, and because they become a part of you, and you start thinking that, well, they're here looking after me, and I'm looking after you guys. Um, and as soon as the storm basically dissipated and it started to get a lot calmer, they'd fly off and start feeding again. So yeah, I had some amazing wildlife encounters
That's so lovely.
that I'll never ever forget, really. So the Rados that followed me for 3,500 miles, when I got into the water to clean the hull, to clean the barnacles off it, because the barnacles slowed the boat down. There was like a mass feeding frenzy. They knew, it's like when you feed your dog, dog gets excited that they're going to get their meal. Well, exactly, the fish were the same thing. They knew as soon as I got into the water that this meant, feast time for them. And the marine life just got so crazy when I started to clean the barnacles off, because they didn't have to pick them off themselves. They knew that it was a great time for them when I got into the water to clean the boat off. So that was quite a nice time too, really. So there was some, although the actual voyage was torrid, there's no question about it at all. And there were more downs than ups. The ups were absolutely sensational and so unforgettable. And I remember Sharon saying to me that, you will remember the better times when you get home, when you get on land. At the time, I didn't think so. But she's proven to be correct. The good times have shone through. And I think the impact that the boat has had on people that have heard the story has been remarkable, from the point of view that it has started to get people to talk about how they feel inside their heads and hearts. And as I say, mental health is an equal important part of us. We have our physical health, but on the other side of the coin, we also have our mental health, which is of equal importance. And I think our campaign, which has been extremely small, has actually really had a positive effect on a lot of a lot of people, which is fabulous.
So lovely. And last in November, I asked you what one word you'd use to describe yourself, and you used the word crazy, which I
Yeah,
loved.
yeah.
So if I was to ask you that same question, what one word would you now use to describe yourself? What would it be?
I'd have to say the same thing, to be fair, because you know the crazy people in the world, like you and me said, we crazy people do crazy things, and by doing crazy things, you're actually taking yourself out of a comfort zone and showing to people that craziness is really cool. It can create great things, um, and if you don't get people that think that things can be done in a different way, nothing would ever change in the world. Um, so if you look at all of the great philanthropists, if you look at all the great inventors, if you look at all the great adventurers, the great teachers, the great nurses, the great doctors, I mean, you can go into every aspect and every element of profession. It's the crazy guys, the crazy ones, that have actually moved things forward for the greatest of humankind. And thank God we have crazy people in the world, because if we didn't, we'd all stay still, wouldn't we? Nothing would ever move. So here's the craziness in all of its glory.
Wow, Bernie, thank you so much. Really, just really beautiful.